Hello everybody and welcome to episode 18 of the UFOcast, The Sound of Silence. No, not the Simon & Garfunkel song. The 18th episode of UFO, the first to have been produced at Pinewood. Though for a large part of this we're on location. And once again we are joined by Andrew Smith.
Hello.
Of Doctor Who fame, and Michael, as ever.
Oh, hello. As always, it's me, yeah.
Let's just dive straight in. Michael, do you have a dodgy synopsis for us?
One dodgy synopsis. It needs a tune, needs a theme tune. Right. Okay, here we go with the dodgy synopsis for The Sound of Silence. Some sinister and mysterious questions come to light following a series of strange UFO experiences. Surely that's a description of the actual programme. International show-jumping champion Russ Stone disappears, the horribly mutilated body of the local dropout and his dog are found, and the UFOs are seen present. It doesn't even make sense. Okay. When Shadows depth charges a UFO that has fallen into a lake, a cigar-shaped cylinder is the only thing that comes to the surface. What or who does it contain? Again, that is a really dodgy description. There's no mention of the flying saucer that's being used as a human shield thing, which is quite clever.
Where do these synopses come
They're
from?
from the complete Jerry Anderson TV episode guide, which isn't complete,
Right.
published by Box Tree sometime in the 90s, which
You need to switch over to the complete book of Jerry Anderson's UFO, I think.
But we would. But that synopsis, we've got that. But that synopsis is, proper and doesn't even remotely raise questions because that
it's not as amusing.
It's not as amusing.
Yeah, you could praise it, But yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, okay.
It adds
Sound
a
of Silence.
It adds a bit of character.
Flying saucer comes to Earth. Some stuff happens. There's a weird dropout who looks a lot like Richard Beckinsale. And that's kind of it, really. Though there's something to do with and the Valeyards there, and so Slotty Bardfast. What more do you need?
Oh,
you've spoilt my Anderson and Doctor Who watch at the end, and my special Hitchhiker's Guide section. But anyway,
it's fine. You know what? I'll take it back.
We'll save it till the end. But the Who watch this time has got someone who wasn't in Doctor Who, but was supposed to be in Doctor Who.
Ooh,
do you know who that is? Yeah. Ah,
interesting.
Right.
Well, and we've also got
too excited now.
Yes, we've also got somebody who wasn't in Doctor Who but did a big finish, so we should probably mention her in that as well.
Right.
I think that's right.
We're now so out of whack. It's ridiculous.
I'm trying to think who that was because that might well be the same person, but we shall find out later.
We shall find out later. But anyway, the reason that you were on last week because we're recording these two episodes back to back. But this was the episode when I said, Andrew, do you want to come on the podcast? You said, I'm happy to do any, but let's do The Sound of Silence because of the Doctor Who connection for you personally.
Yeah.
So for those of our listeners who aren't up on the Doctor Who stuff, what is your connection with this episode from your Doctor Who point of view?
Well, the Doctor Who story I wrote was called Full Circle. We made it back in 1980. It was one of Tom Baker's last ones. And it's set on a planet called Alzarius where there's a marsh, and marshmen, these creatures come out and attack these citizens in their community in their starliner. And for the location, in July of 1980, we went to Black Park in Slough, to the west of London, very close to Pinewood Studios. And that was our location. That was the planet Alzarius. That's where we found location for the TARDIS to land, for the Marshmen to come up. Everything on location was done there. And then, 2 years ago, watching this, and I don't remember this episode on first broadcast, but watching the Blu-ray, when this one came out, it seemed that just about 70% of it was shot on the shores of Black Park.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a total rush back to, because I was on location with Doctor Who for that, and there's some of it I know. I know exactly the spot. The spots that they were filming in,
Yeah.
In fact, I returned to Black Park last year when I had some friends visiting from Canada, Stephen and Erica, and we went there. Only the second time I've been back there in the last 38 years. Actually, so if anyone's listening to this, actually, if you want to go and visit a UFO location, if you're anywhere near London, if you go to Black Park, it's still very recognisably the location used in this episode.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times for filming episodes of my now deceased Doctor Who podcast, and the second of which was extremely memorable because it chucked it down with rain. And so I was there and it was quite nice, and then it decided to chuck it down with rain. So I had that terrible decision of like, do I make a run back to the car or do I try and wait it out at the cafe? And in the end, I just ran for it, and I was absolutely soaked by the time I got back. But
well, you could have just waited in the Starliner, so you're all right.
I could have waited in the Starliner,
or even the caves on the hill,
or indeed the UFO under the lake.
Oh, spoilers! Yeah.
And this is the thing. So we've talked on the show before about how well the live action meshes with the model work on UFO, and I think in this case it's not brilliantly done with regards to the lake. In terms of like the footage that you see on location looks like Black Park, and then the model of it is not quite up to snuff, I feel, in terms of replicating what you see on location.
It's a big ask to
it's a massively big ask. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's noticeable.
Yeah.
Well, the mobiles are when they're travelling. There's massive gaps in the trees, and the actual filming of the live action sequences, the trees are very, very tightly packed.
Yes. And the trees that I don't know what they are. I'm not a great botanist or anything. I don't know if there's silver birch, maybe, I don't know. But they are quite distinctive trees. They are very thin and very tall.
Yeah.
And I think they're not the obvious thing you go to if you're like making a model forest. Obviously, they'd want to match it as best as they could, but it wouldn't be the easiest thing to replicate, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, you're right. Can I just make it? There's something I need to say about both of these episodes before we do these podcasts. Obviously, I watch the episodes a bit, but I like to listen to them as though they're audio dramas while I'm at work. And this one and last time's story as well. There's a lot of show don't tell. So what you've got is a lot of atmosphere music and a lot of stuff happening on screen, which is ideal for audio drama. So I actually caught myself going, I have no idea what we're up to. And normally when I'm listening to an episode of UFO, I can listen to it and I can just remember where we're up to and it's fine. But with these two, it was very much, there's just been a lot of music for the last couple of minutes and the sound of a truck going past. There's a lot of show and not a lot of dialogue. It is visual. It's a very visual pair of stories.
Well, especially and I think we should talk about it separately and as it's at the end, talk about it at the end. But when they've got the cylinder back at Shadow HQ, again, that is all music and tension and almost no dialogue, isn't it? Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. So it's quite different from some of the earlier episodes, but it is just as nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, visually very nice. There's some lovely way it's been shot. The business with the horses running. I mean, the horses are notoriously difficult to use on camera usefully.
Yeah, and it's a very good looking episode, isn't it?
I
mean, the location helps, but also speaking of location, couple of things about that. I mentioned it's near Pinewood Studios, which is where the show is now filming from, so it's right on their doorstep. And this was the first episode filmed there, I believe. But also the farm. Now the writers on this are David Lane, who had does he direct this one? I can't remember.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
he does. So he writes and directs, and Bob Bell is a co-writer, and Bob Bell was the art director on this. Whether he had any writing credits before, I don't know, but he
You're massively spoiling Anderson Watch now for us, Andrew.
All right,
but
I think we're allowed. We've got guests in. We're allowed.
I should just say, So
no, keep going. It's fine.
The farm location comes from. So he'd spoken to David Lane, and he had a friend lived near him in Jordans in Buckinghamshire, or a family that he knew who owned this Stone Dean farm. And he went to them and it suggested that as a location. That suggested an element of the story to him, and then he went to the family there. I don't know if I read it anywhere. They might be called Stone, but said, would you let us use your farm for filming? And they said, yeah, certainly. And then very unusually for television, not only does it turn up in the episode, but it's called Stone Dean Farm in the episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is really quite bizarre, especially when you've got some unlikable characters like Michael Jason's character.
There isn't anybody likable in this.
Slatty Bartfast is quite likable.
He's lovely.
He is. Yeah.
He's all right.
Susan Jameson's character.
No, Susan Jameson.
I must admit, I did at one point go and check. Are they brother and sister? Because there's a bit of chemistry. This is. I don't know how it's been played or how it's been written, but
it's not immediately obvious.
Yeah,
she's
their
sleeping
relationship
alone.
is.
But
early on, it's not
yeah.
immediately obvious what their relationship is, and then it only becomes clear when I don't know whether she's explicitly referred to as being they're referred to as being siblings, but it's not immediately obvious from the context of their relationship what their relationship is.
No, I think the banter with Slarty is definitely more brothery, sistery kind of taking the mick out of a father thing. Because I think if one of them is a father-in-law, then there's a bit more respect usually, and I think it's been written well enough for that to be more. But you are right. Yeah, but they're both very horsey people, so I don't know if that.
Yeah, and the horse riding stuff is very well done, very well filmed. Although, did you see the very obvious crew member at one point?
Yes,
the guy in the red shirt.
There's a sound boom operator in a shot, isn't there? Yeah,
I mean, I suppose you can miss it, but and for those who are listening, if you haven't seen it, if you go to the bit where Michael Jason's character, they're by the shed fairly early on. They're by the shed on horseback, him and Susan Jameson, and they confront. I think I can't remember his name, but Cowley, yeah.
Cully, yeah.
The dropout, I think it's called in the synopsis. So Michael Jason approaches him, and then Susan Jameson rides forward, and as she does, there's a sound boom operator in a red shirt just to make it more easy to spot. Just fully in shot just behind her. Yeah.
The other thing about that scene, and I don't know whether either of you spotted this, and I found it incredibly distracting, is the reuse of the music cue from Joe 90. It's very distracting to me because there's obviously a lot of fresh music written for UFO, and so when a music cue from a previous Jerry Anderson series crops up, it's immediately obvious. Well, it was to me. And the reason, partly the reason it's obvious is aside from the Joe 90 theme, it's the other track that gets released on albums of Anderson music, and it's from the episode called Hijacked, where Joe has to sort of infiltrate a gang of gun runners, right. And it's a great track, but it just doesn't. I felt it didn't really work with the scene of Michael Jason chasing him through the wood on a horse.
Yeah, actually, I think you're right. Yeah, not that I recognise the music, but I think you're right. It doesn't really match. And
it's one of those. And I suppose I suppose particularly if you know where it comes from, you're like, oh, this is very obvious. This is turned up. I think the reuse of kind of the old music cue from Stingray with underwater stuff works better. But that one for me was quite jarring when it turned up. But I'm being nitpicky. This is a good story.
Yeah. Speaking of jarring, and I might be giving away my approach to this by using that word, but what do you think about the scene where Cully comes to the farm at night and Susan Jameson wakes up?
I was waiting to comment on that. I really was.
It's very
questionable.
Yeah, it is questionable. I think it also throws up something that's a bit of a problem with UFO, and that it's trying to have its cake and eat it. And this is a series that really has to appeal to the family and to young kids.
Right.
And the inference here, you can, it's quite heavily implied. He's come here to rape her.
Yes.
Yes.
We see him. He has these. It's quite oddly edited, actually, isn't it? With these flashes where he's sleeping and see.
Yeah, because you don't know. It's implied he's having a fantasy, but then we could the reality, which looks exactly the same because it's basically been shot at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. And it never quite commit to being totally explicit about that. But the inference, the strong inference, is there.
You've
this
also
is
got
a program that really in finding its audience, it maybe has gone too far with elements like that, which, to be honest, is completely unnecessary. He could just be coming to the farm to get some food for the sake of the story.
Yes, but when he gets bumped off, you're not meant to go, oh, he's been bumped off. You're meant to go, well, he was a wrong in any way. Like, narratively speaking, so that you don't have... So that your feelings are being dictated to by the program, rather than you go, oh, he was just... What's going to happen there? I don't know.
He also. I've got to say, he starts spewing blood very quickly.
Very, very quickly.
That is.
He's not.
And bite down on the capsule now.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
I have to say that as I've said this before, that as somebody who discovered this series as a student on DVD, and knowing obviously that it followed on from the Super Mario Nation shows, but I was incredibly surprised to discover people talking about having watched it as kids, because to me it very much came across as a show for adults, and particularly when you get to this second production block, which this story begins. There are some. It's not very explicit. Most of the episodes are still only PG rated, but there are adult themes and things running through, and so that was just my assumption that this was Jerry Anderson finally getting a chance to kind of pitch a show for grown-ups.
Yeah, I was watching this as like a 9 and 10-year-old. I was 9 or 10 watching this and loving it, but I was loving it for the mobiles and the aliens and the interceptors and Sid and
that's true.
Yeah. The depth in a Jerry Anderson thing is, Sid. And all these things, and the skydiver setup, and there's so many layers to it. It's so typical. It's like Space 1999 has that same thing, or just like comm locks, just little devices and things, and But get back to the main point we're talking about. Yeah, I watched it as a 9 or 10-year-old kid, and I loved it. I mean, like I said, I don't specifically remember this one, but again, I think it bumped around the schedules a bit, and I mean, obviously there is one episode coming up that I don't know if it's even broadcast for a long time because it dealt with drugs.
Yes.
This one,
which Jerry Anderson, all the way through said that was beyond him. He hadn't even spotted that.
Yes.
Which
yes, I think some regions didn't broadcast that for a while. But no, I mean, but many did. In I'm just looking at the book. Yes.
So
in fact, in Yorkshire, they were 6 episodes. They didn't get till 1974. They got all the rest in 1971, and then they didn't get 6 of them, including the one that we're talking about, the long sleep.
Right.
But yeah. So we have. So also the murder of Cully brings up another point in the ongoing story about the aliens, in that they as far as we know at this point, they're coming to Earth to take humans for body parts,
one at a time.
And you kind of think, well, in which case, why do they murder him? Because he's much readier. In fact, I'm watching. He's dying right now.
I'm a couple of minutes ahead of you.
Why do they murder him? Because what's wrong with his body? And again, there are more questions than answers.
Is that more to do with him being I don't know what the politically correct term would be, homeless?
No,
because the other guy's like an Olympic athlete. Oh, we'll have his body.
You know what? I've got a feeling this occurred to me, and then a solution came up in the story, and I can't think what it was. I just cannot think what it was. But there was, or even murdered the dog, didn't they? Did they murder the dog?
Yeah, there's a freeze frame and it goes off. But the dog is clearly breathing. Oh, quick question about the dog, right?
Right.
Now, I've got no issues with the way that some people's voices in the program are clearly somebody else's voices. However, the noise the dog makes is so blatantly a person going woof 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 woof.
Do you know who that is? Do you know who that is?
It's not Sylvia, is it?
It's Percy Edwards.
No.
There's a credit, and I only noticed it this time around, getting ready for this. Animal Noises by Percy Edwards. And I thought, and people who don't know, and there'll be a lot of people listening who don't know.
There really will be.
But he's a guy. It's a guy who made his career. This is what life was like before the Xbox and DVDs and VHS and being able to, other sorts of entertainment. We had people on TV who would just do animal noises, and you go, and he was famous. He
would be on That's Life every other week.
Yeah.
Oh,
quite an odd character.
Blue Peter, yes.
He did some. No, that might be Who Watch, but I've got a feeling. Yeah. Anyway. But
all right, but it wasn't just me thinking that it was the oddest sounding dog known to man.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
I mean, if you're going to talk about him in Who Watch, I have not got anything on this guy because I did not know this. I have never heard of this guy before. I'm a generation sort of later or so. And yes,
whereas I'm of the generation, I see Percy Edwards on the credits. Bloody hell! It's also because I saw animal noises, but the whole point of this is that what animal was it? And it's only when you mentioned it there, Michael, that
it's the dog.
Yes,
yeah.
Two and two. It's the dog, because obviously everything else is silent.
Yeah,
I don't know why. Again, that is something that occurred to me watching it. Why is it silent? I mean, it's
because all of the animals know about the aliens and they find them alien and bugger off. That's basically it. It's one of the things.
But not the dog.
But not the dog. No, the dog's very loyal or stupid.
The horses are aware on some level that there's an alien.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that's why it throws him.
That's actually quite believable.
Okay.
I did some work
believable
not long ago with horses.
Yeah.
And just the sensitivity that they have to their surroundings and their emotion and the emotions of the people around them is quite stark. So that's a believable aspect that horses will be aware of the aliens when humans weren't.
And of course, as we discover in a few episodes' time, aliens can communicate or put themselves into the minds of animals, apparently.
Spoilers. Massive spoiler, Michael.
Apparently. So perhaps they were aware that they may be being subjugated.
Possibly,
Shall I just say something? As we're talking about Cully and the dog and everything, there's a thing that I came across while I was watching this, having recently watched a Doctor Who, and this isn't about casting, but you know the scene, it's at night, and Cully is looking out at the lake, and he sees the glowing light under the water that glows and then fades away, right? But 2 weeks before I watched this episode, I was watching some episodes of Doctor Who for a thing, including The Stones of Blood.
Right.
And I was listening to the commentary from the director, Darryl Blake, and the co-star, Mary Tam. And for episode 3, at the beginning, there's a scene where the Doctor is chased by an ogre that is a stone alien, part of a stone circle. Comes to the edge of a cliff. The Doctor does a matador piece. The ogre, it's a glowing stone, goes over the edge into the water.
Yes.
And then we have a shot of a glowing light under the water at night. And Darryl Blake in the commentary is talking about there were a number of sea film shots that he got hold of, and he said he got into a film library and he got these shots of like waves on the shore because they weren't anywhere near the sea where they were filming. They were in Oxfordshire,
near Banbury, weren't they?
And then there's this scene when the ogre goes over into the water and the Doctor and Professor Rumford look over. You see the shot of the water and this glowing light underneath that fades away, and that's like the dying ogre. Darryl Blake says, that was a bit of luck. I was looking through this film stock, and this bit of film was among it, and I didn't know where it come from, but I thought, oh, that'll do. And I've got to tell you, it's and I've been comparing both of them. There's not an exact match, but the angle and the light looks to me exactly right. The surface of the water in the UFO episodes looks a little more disturbed. Like there's maybe a breeze blowing over it, but it could be footage from the same shoot. They've just used that piece of footage, discovered discarded the rest of it, and that's turned up in an episode of Doctor Who. But if you look at it, I think they look pretty damn similar. The light sources look identical.
I know what I'm watching tonight.
So it could be.
I'll have to look at that later. Yeah.
yeah. I did have a time code for it in this episode, but you know where it is. It's not that far in. And then it's within the first sort of 3 or 4 minutes of episode 3 of the Stones of Blood. And if that does turn out to be right, that was I'm quite happy to have discovered that a link between that Doctor Who episode and UFO. Because it's not exactly the same episode, you can't be completely sure, but I'm pretty sure that it's from the same model or effects shooting sequence, and a bit of the unused footage has turned up in Doctor Who, which obviously would have been about 6 or 7 years after this was filmed.
Yeah. I know, and we've talked previously about how props from UFO turn up in Doctor Who stories. In particular, the Green Death. One thing I've just been seeing some Shadow HQ scenes in this story. There's a couple of things I feel to note about Shadow HQ now that we've moved to Pinewood. And I don't know whether it's just in this episode. We'll see as we go over the future episodes. They started shooting from a different angle. And so it's almost like the camera's over on the other side of the set. And the fourth wall has been moved. And the other thing to say, Michael and I both have our Keith Ford Rocks t-shirts. Keith Ford is another is another character who will take no more part in the story. But his absence leaves a hole that, in this story at least, is filled by Aisha Bruff, who we talked about last week as someone that I'd met. And she now has a bit more of a role. She sits at his desk doing his job.
Are you telling me there's no more Keith Ford?
Did you not know that?
I'm deeply upset.
Oh, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, Michael.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
that's awful. I need a drink.
Sadly was one of the actors that wasn't available when they started up production again.
Oh, but he rocks.
He does. He does rock.
You've not heard the Benji and Nick episode where they review UFO, but they have such a go at Keith Ford, and it's just like the one I had at the beginning of this whole run.
Yep.
And I sent Nick a link to the Keith Ford Rocks t-shirt, and he wasn't impressed. It's very upsetting.
You have to get him to watch more of the show because he doesn't come out that first episode very well.
On the other hand, Michael, Aisha.
Yeah.
And we got Benedict Cumberbatch's lovely mum coming up.
Well, it swings and roundabouts. It is.
But Aisha, I've got to say, Aisha, it's kind of odd, again, watching this again, it's odd seeing her. Because she used to be, she was a personality, I think she was a model, but she used to turn up a lot of kids' TV. She was a presenter on something. I can't remember what she did. I don't know if it was like How or, there's a program called How. She
did a program called Lift Off with Aisha, which was essentially a sort of junior version of Top of the Pops. And when she was cast in UFO to start with, that was to excuse the pun, that was just taking off. So by the time they finished filming on UFO, she was a lot more famous than when she started. Which is why her role is quite minimal. But they did try to give her as much stuff as they could. She was in the 70s. Yeah, that's right, because this would have been 69, they would have filmed it maybe into 70. And but in the 70s, she was ubiquitous. And she turned up a lot in Look-In magazine, the in inverted commas, the Junior TV Times. Right. Which, again, if you were a kid in the 70s, you got Look-In. You
certainly did. We couldn't afford Look-In. So I used to go to the newsagents and read it and be shouted at by Colin Noble, the man who owned the Noble's newsagents, where he would go, he would say, "It's not a bloody library, you know."
Yeah.
That was the best impression of Colin Noble you will ever hear.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I mean, UFO is a nostalgia thing. Aisha, she's her own little pocket of nostalgia right there for someone again who was a kid. And I was 10, so it was fairly pure.
So basically, what you're saying, Andrew, is that if you could have taken my place a few weekends ago at ShadowCon to be the interviewer for her, you would have jumped at the chance.
I would have probably just sat there batting my eyelids at her, to be honest. I used to, oh man. What it used to, I wouldn't have said no. When I was a little boy, hello.
Because actors and actresses absolutely love to hear that. When I was little.
Yes. Yes. I refrained from mentioning my age, I think.
Well, I get that. I get, do you know, Full Circle is my first memory of that. Oh, right, okay. Mine was black and white, Patrick Troughton. Fine.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't even alive when Full Circle went out, so.
Well, there you go.
That's my youth.
Yeah. That's fine. I shall shave off my grey beard tomorrow.
Sadly, I think this was something that she said to somebody else at the convention. None of Liftoff survives. So she's always looking for people with their own video tape collections from the time to see if anything has turned up, because obviously she gets no residuals from the programs because they're not unlike Top of the Pops, which on other channels. It can't be repeated because it no longer exists, which is a real shame, I guess, particularly for her. But it's nice to see her getting a slightly bigger role in the show now that sadly Keith Alexander has had to leave.
Yeah. Mixes it up a bit, and it is a feature of UFO. Like I say, the cast changes, and we're just getting into some fairly significant cast changes in this one.
Yeah.
Yes.
As we're talking about Shadow HQ, shall we talk about the canister and
this
the people pod? Yeah.
The people pod, that they don't know what it is. They think it might be one great big bomb.
Yes.
So what should we do with it? Let's take it. Let us take it to the headquarters of our secret organisation.
And cut it open.
It's another one of Straker's.
I like this episode, but I get to, and I rewatching it, I got to that, and I just think,
even earlier on, Straker does interrogations via Skype. He's got his little TV monitor on, and he's talking to someone who's being asked questions. Now, the scientist who appear to be Lou Carpenter again from Neighbours, he's he is definitely in the same room. They just go down the corridor and come through the door to have a word with the bomb thing.
Yes.
And you're right. They would have put it somewhere in like a Hangar 18 somewhere, and you could have done this over the phone, because then as an audience member you would have been like, oh, it could explode, because all of the characters around the bomb in inverted commas aren't regulars, so they could die. Which instantly makes you think, oh, there is a bit of more jeopardy.
Yeah.
But you maybe get people say, well, they don't suspect it's a bomb, they don't know it's a bomb, it's come from a thing, but nothing has changed. There is no new information. I mean, like, oh my God, this could be a bomb.
Or it could be a power pack for the UFO. It could be something that actually runs the ship. You don't tap into a big...
Also, is it just me, but it doesn't look big enough for someone to be in it, I didn't think. I couldn't, and especially someone to be in it in a way that they would later be just walking around.
Yeah, I can see that.
You mean they'd folded him up for the journey?
Yeah, I couldn't really get the scale of it right for that. In my head, I found it each time I watched this, I found it very odd.
Oh, and then it all goes a bit quick.
So then see him like walking around.
Yeah. I have to say that you haven't touched on the most annoying part of it, which is the fact that they drill a hole that's about 3 centimetres deep and then bring out a thing that's about 10 centimetres thick. And you're like, well, how did you drill that out with a thing that only goes that far into the casing of the thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's got a top on it. It's not like it could cut down, and you're so right. And
yes.
Well,
however, I am just watching the scene where they get the UFO out of the lake, and that is fantastic. Just the depth charges and the machine gunning, and the fact that one of the Shadow Mobiles gets totaled by the aliens.
That may be the best. That may be the best mobile sequence in the series. Mobiles on the attack. Yeah.
Well, it's one of those things where you go, oh, they've got depth charge firing things, they've got machine guns. There's just suddenly a lot more to them than
because for the longest time they've just been sort of glorified buses. But perhaps these are the replacements after one of them got totaled. In that in the episode with the Quonset Grig guy. Yeah.
Yes. ESP. Yes. For those who don't get the Doctor Who references.
I think most of them will get the Doctor Who references. It's not a problem. This
is for UFO fans. And can I be honest? There are a number of times that you drop in a name like the Green Death. There's one episode you meant the Green Death. And you could just do saying this is a Doctor Who episode, because there will be people watching this who certainly won't know randomly a John Pertwee.
No, you are so.
I think we've scared them all off now, to be honest. We've diffused the not bomb. And I mean, aside from all those niggles we've just talked about, it is a very tense scene. It's very well scored and sound affected. And for a story that's called The Sound of Silence, there is that extra kind of focus on the sound of what the story is. So I think that is quite effective. Were you? I mean, this is the thing, guys. Were you expecting what were you guys expecting it to be?
Well,
I expected it to be parts of him.
Right.
That's what they were saying. I thought it'd be bits of him. That's the thing. It's meant to turn out to be a heartbeat in there, but that didn't. Again, I didn't really get the heartbeat thing. I thought, was that meant to be a heartbeat? Because I think they were trying to obfuscate the fact, because it should be obvious. Oh, it's a heartbeat. There's someone living in there. It is. Well, actually, all they say is, and I've watched this for a few weeks, but they say something like it's a regular tone or something.
Yes.
Whereas in fact, they should be able to just go, oh, that's I'm a doctor. Hang on, that's a heartbeat.
Isn't the implication that they've slowed all of his functions down
for transport?
Using whatever.
He said using the cold in the.
But it's still something that I think that comes across as more electronic than organic.
Yes,
I think the way it's done, which is I think the way it might be the way of saying, well, in post production even saying, oh, we tried with a heartbeat, but it kind of gives the game away, that there's someone alive in there, possibly.
Yeah. Mind you, though, when you hear when you're in a hospital and there's a heart monitor going on, what you're hearing is the bleep of the machine rather than a heart noise. So
that's the machine giving an audible reading for a reason. But I think if you've got stethoscopes and checking for sounds and things, then what you're going to get is a heartbeat. But that works. But again, I just got to think, I never really got the sense of the scale of this thing, that it was of a size that you could get a full human body in it, But obviously, I was wrong. But I'd have to go back and look at it again. As to
the angle it's at, I've just seen the scene, and it looks as though it could.
Yeah.
Arguably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. But I think you've also got the fact that in reality, it didn't have to have a person in it. They didn't stick Michael Jason inside, because you never actually see him come out of it. And it could be that the prop genuinely isn't big enough to put him in.
True.
Yeah, I think it is. I think that's an issue. It could have really done with seeing him in, open up, and there he is.
Yeah, it would have made things more obvious.
And then, having brought this potential bomb to Shadow HQ, they bring his sister to Shadow HQ in a dress that we will see again.
I was going to say, the first appearance of the dress.
The dress, which, again, looks, from what we've seen of her up till now, apart possibly from the skimpy nightie for the that's been decided to dress her in for the night scene with Cully dies, just seems quite out of character.
It really does.
Character, unless she's got a job at a pole dancing club.
Well, it's a very easy wipe down top. Yeah, it's no. And also, we do see it again. We see that one dress. Now, I know Sylvia. The thing is, right, I've got a weird relationship with the costumes because Sylvia Anderson's going, right, these are the costumes, everyone. And she's a woman, and she's dressing other women in costumes. I wish I could have just asked her about her approach to all of this, because it raises more questions, and I'm just interested in knowing what her approach was and why she was doing that, because this is a woman who is quite horsey, and the other horsey people that I've known in real life dress quite practically because it's their passions that are important to them rather than the fashions, and that's perfectly reasonable approach to life.
It's out of character. That's the thing. I mean, we see it, I think, in Psycho Bombs, obviously coming up, and there it you know, as I remember, it's fine. It kind of fits the character, or it actually tells you something about the character.
Yeah, and here it's a distraction.
Kind of outgoing. Outgoing and
Yeah.
confident, and but for Susan Jameson's character, what we've seen of her up to now, it kind of takes you out of it.
Yeah. And there's also just the fact that when they prepare to inject her with the amnesia drug, she already seems a little bit out of it.
Yeah.
Already.
And the amnesia drug, that's something I really don't like.
The retcon stuff, yeah.
You know, the retcon stuff, you know, we've got it in Doctor Who as well, and it's really not nice. And what then really makes it unpleasant is Paul Foster then rocks up at the farm.
I'm just checking
to chat her up, you know, and I thought, if I was his boss, he and I would be having a conversation.
To be fair, this whole program is littered with things like that.
It's not the first time he's done it either. He did it way back in the Dalek.
Yeah, the entire narrative was about that.
Yeah, and the fact that they had a romance initially before she had her memory wiped, and the idea was that he was then going to chat her up again because she'd forgotten.
Well, clearly it worked because he's now after someone else.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean I was just going to say that there is the whole episode Survival. It's kind of partly based around the fact that his girlfriend thinks that he's dead, and then he spends the rest of the series being this ladies' man who is prepared to chop and change rather frequently. But maybe that's part of the character. He's like, well, I can't now have long-term relationships because I'm a secret agent, and this is part of it.
Still not convinced.
No, no, I'm not convinced either. I think it's just he's lecherous and he thinks, well, we were getting on really well before, so I'll have another crack. It's I get one of those things at the time that probably just went straight over people's heads. Now you watch it and you think, it's a bit inappropriate. And also, I mean, I really don't know. I was a police officer as well, and I manage police officers, and it's kind of like someone who follows up an investigation by going and starting a relationship with a victim.
Yeah.
You don't do it, you know.
Was that something that you ever had to discipline anybody over in your career?
No, not discipline them over.
You must have to warn people about it, because there are humans.
There are. I'm just trying to think. You'd certainly sometimes get victims who'd hit on officers. That kind of that way around, and have to remind officers.
Let's face it, there's a reason that uniform dating exists as a website.
Yeah, does it?
Oh, apparently so, yes. But, so there's a lot of lollipop women out there and lollipop men, very popular,
Yeah, but there is, I mean, the serious point is there is a thing of, you got victims, witnesses and things that officers do not have relationships.
Oh, yeah.
And this is in that same, and this is obviously something that touches nerves with me more than it would a lot of people, but so that makes me
and also
comfortable.
Paul Foster's got form for this. That, as you said, it's like you've done it before.
Yeah.
So
Plus, you got the reprehensible thing of wiping people's memories, and
yes, Which arguably with the square triangle was worse because in that story they knew that they'd stumbled onto a murder plot and then let it happen.
Which you know what, I'm going to have issues with that story for as long as that story exists for that reason. Because quite clearly they could have just phoned up someone with a tip-off and just gone, think this person's got something in mind. And
yeah.
But even in Torchwood, it's got it's the same chemicals, but it's got different, it's got the same outcomes. Yeah.
But at least
Torchwood, we've got the horrible thing where Gwen decides to confess to her husband Reese that she's had an affair, and totally put her heart out to him. I'm terribly sorry, I've had an affair. That's terrible. And at the same time, she's fed him this memory wiping drug, so he will remember nothing about it. But hey, she's confessed.
Yeah,
and that is terrible. That's a horrible thing to do. Yeah.
So at least UFO never went that far.
No.
But there are, as we've said before, there are far too many similarities between UFO and Torchwood anyway, because it's a secret organisation trying to defend the world from flying saucers, from aliens. But it's very different. It's got its unique selling points, and that's what makes it great.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And it's not like this isn't something that, like, I mean, Men in Black does it. This is part of the genre, isn't it? If you are doing a show about the fact that aliens exist, and you're trying to keep that from the general public, there has to be ways of manipulating.
It's the Get Out as well to make the series feel more real, as if it could be happening. But...
Yes, and the fact that they only have to use it on a few occasions shows how well they generally do manage to handle the situations without having to reveal themselves.
And narratively, it allows you to obviously have these characters interact with stories with us aliens and whatever, without having to say, well, hang on, won't these people go away and talk about it?
Yeah.
It's just, it'd be nice if we could have a less morally reprehensible way of doing it.
And there's never been a story with somebody where it just didn't work on them. What would you do with them? Because not all drugs work on everyone. So,
the only time it wouldn't work would be if it was narratively convenient for it not to work.
Yes,
because it is a narrative device. That's all it is.
And I suppose you do have the implication. I forget which episode it was. We talked about it previously. That if somebody from Shadow wanted to leave, that the implication being that they would bump you off, rather than wipe your memory. But that's not any less morally sound, is it?
And
but I'll tell you what, it is a really good device, and it can give you a good gag as well. And the one, it often doesn't stand up to scrutiny. And the best example of that is in the Doctor Anniversary story, The Day of the Doctor. They've got the Black Archive, where the worst weapons that have been recovered are. And the guy on the door, I want to know his name. Like Perkins, is it?
Sounds
on the door.
Yeah,
something like that.
But anyway, the guy's on the door. Kate Stewart, who heads up unit, she brings in Clara. They go into the Black Archive, past this guard, is called Perkins, whatever he's called, and he thinks it's his first day on the job. But he's been there for how long? 10 or 20 years?
Yes, something like that.
Which is something that you think, because they've got these memory wiping things in the ceiling, and his memory gets wiped every day. And it's a great gag, but it completely does not stand up to scrutiny, because obviously he's got other people in his life. He's getting older. There are so many things in day-to-day life that actually, hang on, something is not right here.
Yeah.
And actually, because of that, that's the thing. It takes the curse off that one. It's not a terrible thing to do, because actually it's completely impractical and wouldn't work anyway. But it's a nice gag.
Yes.
Just to say, it's his first day in the job. No, he's been here 20 years.
Yes.
We wipe his memory tonight. He's been here 20 years. So, in a situation where you're not really thinking about the human implications of it, it's just a nice little gag. Yeah. And you don't think about it when you're watching the story either.
No.
Whereas with this, when Foster returns to the farm, I'd think, oh, you slimy git, and if you were one of mine, we'd be having this. Get into my office.
Right. So before time completely gets away from us.
So, yes. Yeah. Do we have anything final to say before we go into Anderson Watch and Doctor Who Watch?
I just wish they'd got a better dog. None of the dog itself was good. It's the voice. I just wish they'd got proper barking.
Right. Well, in which case, let's dive into Anderson Watch. You've already touched on this, Andrew. we
Yes.
have David Lane, who we've talked about his directing career elsewhere, but he's a writer on this one. So previous episodes of UFOcast will have dealt with him. But his co-writer, Bob Bell, is also a very familiar Anderson name, who this is his only Anderson writing credit. But you've already talked about the fact that he worked on other Anderson programs. What can you tell us about Bob Bell?
Not a lot. He was the art director. I mean, David Lane, I know. Bob Bell, I'm sorry to say, I don't. I know he's the art director on this because I know the background of this episode. But actually, sorry, I don't actually know a lot about it.
Well, I mean, he goes back to Four Feather Falls. So he did.
Oh
he did
wow,
one
that's right. The early days of
exactly. So
yeah.
he did an episode of Four Feather Falls. He did 5 episodes of Fireball XL5, and then he was art director through Stingray, Captain Scarlet, Thunderbird 6, the Thunderbird movie, Doppelganger, UFO, and The Protectors.
Oh, he's very much part of the family then.
Yes, and then I spoiled it. I briefly kind of teased this last time. He was associate producer on 2 episodes of Terrorhawks, Space Police, which was the forerunner of Space Precinct, and Dick Spanner.
I did like Dick Spanner.
So he was somebody that Jerry obviously brought back into the stable for the sort of later aspects of his
Terrorhawks
career.
Was so good.
But I know nothing about Dick Spanner. You keep mentioning
Dick
it,
Spanner was,
Michael, but I know nothing about Dick Spanner.
Let me see. I can't remember what the program was called, but Dick Spanner was a few minutes long, moments literally, and it was a weekly drama, a weekly sort of film noir thing of a robot detective, and they were kind of expanded foam models done in, I suspect, stop animation, but I was never completely sure. It was very rudimentary because it was all in the gags and the puns. But I want to say Network 7, Channel 4 program Sunday mornings, with a definite teen target. And there was that, and it was a sort of running thing. I do own it somewhere. I think I had it on VHS for a while. I may have transferred it over. There was the Curse of the Maltese Parrot, I think it was one of the ongoing stories. It was. Can you think Morph in Vision On or Take Heart, and you've got a small animated segment of a larger show. It's like that.
It's funny. The name meant nothing to me, but I've just Googled it, and for the images of Dick Spanner himself, I do remember having seen some of this. It's from 1986. It says.
Right.
So yeah. So I think I wasn't. I mean, I was 24 then. I wasn't watching, and 2 years into my police career, I was watching.
I was 14.
A lot of TV, and certainly wouldn't have been watching this. What you're the perfect audience it looks like for this, yeah.
So that's Bob. That's Bob Bell.
Yeah.
You've already mentioned Tom Oliver, Michael. We covered him in Confetti Check A-OK because that was his other Anderson appearance. But as we've mentioned before, famous for being Lou in Neighbours.
I did spot another one.
And
Lou's assistant
go ahead.
in this, I recognised from an episode of The Persuaders that was on ITV3 about a month ago, where he played someone so psychotic he could have been in an Avengers episode.
Well, I have him down as a very honorary mention in Doctor Who Watch, because he was never in Doctor Who, but his name is Malcolm Reynolds, which is significant for any Firefly fans. That's the name of the main character in Firefly. He was in an episode of Moonbase 3, which obviously is not technically Doctor Who, but it was made by the Doctor Who production team in between, I want to say, series 8 and 9, or 9 and 10 of Doctor Who, so the John Pertwee era. I've never seen Moonbase 3, but I thought I'd bung him in there as a sort of honorary.
It's the programme that
mention.
isn't Star Cops, but people keep mistaking it for.
I've just got the DVD of Moonbase 3. I've never seen it, but I've just got the DVD, so it's lined up to watch. I hear
it's very hard sci-fi, but I don't know. I've never seen it, so anybody who's seen it, let us know.
Yes, right.
Anyway, we've got some more people to cover in Anderson Watch. So any ideas?
Hang on. Sorry. Have we done Doctor Who Watch? Shall we?
No,
finish
we'll come back to Doctor Who Watch.
Okay, come back to that. Okay,
but yeah, we there's a couple of people to cover on Anderson Watch.
Right.
If you spotted anybody, and Andrew, I think we talked about. Did we talk about Space 1999 this episode or last episode? I've already forgotten. They're merging into one.
Either way, let's do it again.
But anyway, I think it was last episode. I think.
Well, okay. So the episode that you talked about, as the one that you should watch if you watch one episode, is Dragon's Domain.
Yeah.
And that crops up here because Susan Jameson, who played Anne Stone in this, who we talked about. Plays Professor Juliet Mackey in the episode Dragon's Domain of Space 1999.
You know what? I'd never noticed her as an actress until much later in her career when I used to watch New Tricks. And that was the first time I ever noticed her. And after that, I didn't realise, because in real life she's married to James Bolam. And but she was playing Alan Armstrong? Alan Armstrong's wife in that.
Armstrong's wife in the show,
Later on, James Bolam's in a kids program, which I'm sure at some point in your very near future you'll see, called Magic Grandad. Yeah.
Oh, I've already seen it.
She's in that as the auntie as well.
Right.
And he shrinks down rather
than Grandad in my pocket.
That's the
Grandad
one.
in my pocket. Yeah.
It's like the Secret Service, isn't it, with the shrinking?
So she's in that. So I've now experienced her career kind of in reverse, and she's one of these people that I keep spotting and going, oh yeah, and she's been constantly in work, and she's always very, very good. I just hadn't noticed her, and I'm always impressed when that happens, and you go, oh yeah, oh god, they've been in everything. How didn't I notice?
Yeah.
And the other person, and he bridges Anderson and Doctor Who, so that helps, is Nigel Gregory, who played Cully, the homeless
who was he in Doctor Who?
wanderer. He was in K9 and Company. So, but we'll we'll get that out of the way first. He was Sergeant Vince Wilson, so up your street, Andrew. In K9 and Company, he played the sergeant.
Oh wow, yeah.
And it's so long since I've seen K9 and Company that
I try and watch it every Christmas.
But next time I'm sure I'll watch it and go.
I shall wait another 6 months and then I shall spot him then.
K9. But yes, he actually comes back in. Although he dies in this episode of UFO, he returns as a security guard in
It's always for the best. Yes.
And later in his career in an episode of Space Precinct. So there you go. We have one other person to talk about in Doctor Who Watch. Andrew, I think, has somebody else that he wants to talk about. But obviously, there's a main character here from Doctor Who that we need to talk about.
Michael Jaston.
Yes, the not.
Yes.
Doctor.
Yes. Yeah. The Broom
and I think
Yard.
we are recording this the day after, I think, Trial of a Time Lord has been on Twitch. So all the young whippersnappers will have been watching that performance of his. And I think whatever you think of the story, he is brilliant in it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
playing the Valeyard.
Playing the Valeyard, yes. Or as I have always known him.
Spoilers.
Sorry,
but,
spoilers for a story.
I was
like
going to say, should we just say he's like the prosecutor, the prosecuting counsel?
Sorry, I've spoiled it there. I could edit that bit out. I don't think I will.
Maybe just bleep. Just bleep.
Bleep that.
Yeah, maybe.
As they do in the story itself.
I
mean, I've had have you guys met him? I had the pleasure of meeting him at Hooverville, and obviously interviewed him then about Doctor Who. But I think I briefly mentioned this episode. So that interview is out there somewhere, I believe. I might track that down and link to it in the show notes. So if you want to hear my brief chat with Michael Jaston, I will attempt to dig it out.
And done so much. I mean, I remember him particularly. He was in the series called Quiller.
Right.
Quiller was a secret agent, a BBC series. It was very big in its day. And he played Peter Gwilym in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the BBC dramatisation. Very standout performance there. One of the best drama series the BBC's ever done. and so much more. He's someone he was in Nicholas and Alexandra with where Tom Baker played Rasputin.
Oh yeah, we watched that at school in a history lesson.
Rasputin.
Yeah, it was he's so good.
Yeah.
He's good in practically everything.
Yeah, he plays Tsar Nicholas II in that. Yeah. Shall I just quickly mention the Doctor Who, the
Please do.
person who should have been in Doctor Who but wasn't? Susan Jameson. Susan Jameson was cast as the security leader in the John Pertwee story Colony in Space. She was actually cast and contracted to play the security leader called, I think, Morgan, who was eventually she was replaced by Tony Conta. And the reason that she didn't do it was because the powers that be, in inverted commas, at the BBC decided that it wasn't appropriate for a woman.
Was this the one where she wasn't appropriate because the costume was all going to be all leather?
You know what? I heard that recently. That's not what I heard. Just simply that it's felt that this character, who was quite nasty in many ways, was just not an appropriate
that never worked.
character for a woman.
Yeah.
For a female character, it should have been a male character. So no, I heard recently a thing about it wasn't appropriate for her to dress in the but the costumes. It was hardly as if they were like it wasn't bondage gear or anything, but possibly, but just that the role it was dictated that the role was not appropriate. So she was paid in full for the role, but she was replaced by Tony Conta. So she was that close to being a Doctor. As far as I know, she didn't do another Doctor Who.
Well, but she and James Bolam together, I think, were in Spectre of Lanyon Moor.
Certainly were.
For Big Finish, very early on.
Fugu.
Oh, right.
She just about snuck in there. Yes. So, thank you very much, Andrew, for that wisdom and for being with us for the last couple of episodes. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. It's been a real treat to join you guys. I've enjoyed the podcast, and I shall be listening to the rest of it. Good luck with the rest of it. And I always you always make me want to go back and revisit the episodes as well. And I like I say, I so love UFO, and it's great that this podcast is out there. Hopefully, not just for the people who know the series and love it already, but hopefully engendering new love and pointing people at it to watch it who might not otherwise watch it.
Fantastic. Thanks
and
again.
I hope I see you both before too long.
Yes. Hope to see you soon. And next week, Michael, tell us what we're looking at.
That's a good question. I will... Next time... Oh, I can't even see. It's got dark.
It's The Cat with 10 Lives. The return of Prisoner Watch next week because of the main guest star. That is one to look forward to. So until then, be seeing you.
Be seeing you.
Be seeing you.